video out to y'all and tell you what games I'm looking forward to the most. This list might surprise you a little bit with what's on it and what's not on it. Now, I tried to comprise my list of games that actually had a 2023 release date or are just very likely to release in 2023. 2023 is very stacked with games. I know people say that every year, but it's very true for next year. I know that because when I was putting this list together, it's usually, it's usually easy for me each year to put this list together. But this time, I had to add games, remove games, rearrange my list a lot. Like this is probably, I don't know, the 20th version of this list that I had to put together because I really had to like sit and think about it and really like go with my gut of like what am I actually excited for and what, am I really anticipating. So, here's the list. So at number 10, I have Dead Space Remake. This is probably going to be the first game I also actually buy for the year. It comes out in January, I believe January 27th, if my memory serves me correct. And I'm a huge Dead Space fan. Always have been since day one when I, bought the original game over a decade ago, made by EA Visceral. And now the remake is being done by EA Motive. So I'm very excited for this game. I know this studio is going to do it justice. They're treating it right. They're very confident about it, it seems, because they've been doing developer diaries all along the way. So yeah, I think I'm definitely going to start out the year right with Dead Space Remake. And it also shocks me how many people never actually played the original Dead Space. I hear people all the time say they never played the original. I'm like, what the hell were y'all doing when this game came out all those years ago? And probably y'all was probably playing Call of Duty. Shame on y'all, because that, unfortunately, a lot of games that came out during the PS3 and 360 era, people never really gave a chance, or they got like kind of overshadowed or shoved under the rug because that was the generation where everybody was, obsessed with Call of Duty and first person shooters and all that shit. So games that were really amazing, a lot of them were kind of ignored by a huge genre of people. But I have no doubt that people are, newcomers are gonna love Dead Space Remake when it comes out in January. So that's number 10 for me. Number 9, I have Wolong Fallen Dynasty. This is essentially another kind of Neo Souls-like game from Team Ninja. Team Ninja made Neo 1 and 2 games I've beaten and games I really enjoy. So this is kind of like a deviation slightly from Neo. It's a little bit different gameplay wise, but very similar. And I love Souls games. I think everybody knows that. The reason why it's number 9 and not a better spot on the list is because, to be honest with you, I have Souls fatigue, right, from Elden Ring, because Elden Ring was a Souls game that was obviously longer than usual. Usually these Souls games are, maybe 40, 50 hours, but because of all the content, all the bosses, and this is the first real open world styled Souls game. You could put in 100 hours, really trying to fight all the bosses and do everything in the game. So after I beat the game after 100 hours, I just got major fatigue. I uninstalled the game when I beat it in April, and I'm like, I don't want to play another Souls game for a long time. And even though it's December now, I still kind of feel that way, because even though, yes, I love Elden Ring, I think it's a great game, it still gave me fatigue from how long I had to play it, because I do feel like it overstayed its welcome a little bit. It got a little bit long in the tooth, and I still prefer my Souls games to be on the shorter end, more around maybe 40, 50 hours max, and I still like the linear style of Souls games. So that's number 9. Number 8 is another Souls game. Once again, love Souls games, but I'm a little bit fatigued. So this game actually probably deserves a better spot, just like Wolong. But like I said, what Elden Ring did to me is still having lingering effects. So number 8 is Lies of P. This is essentially a Pinocchio Souls game. It's Pinocchio meets Bloodborne. You don't really got to say much more than that. I mean, we've been begging PlayStation to give us a Bloodborne sequel, give us a Bloodborne remaster. So in the meantime, we have Lies of P, which looks like a great Souls game, obviously inspired by Bloodborne, as I said, and with Pinocchio inspiration, a dark spin of Pinocchio. But you know, the Pinocchio story has a lot of dark versions of it, you know, movie wise. I think there's like 5 or 6 versions of Pinocchio at this point, and I think like 3 of them came out this year or within the last few years. And the original story of Pinocchio, you know, is actually pretty dark in itself, I believe. You know, Disney just put some magical spin on it, but the original story, I believe, is pretty dark. But anyway, number 8 is Lies of P. Number 7 is Stellar Blade. So this is a game that originally started out as Project Eve, but is now Stellar Blade, and the combat looks amazing. Has really cool action. Now it looks a little bit unga bunga, but I'm gonna categorize it as unga, right? It doesn't seem like it goes all the way into the stratosphere of bunga. Get what I'm saying? Never go full unga bunga. I like unga games, right? I like it, you know, just meet me in the middle. Don't go all the way, you know, off the spectrum and go crazy with it. You know, I like that middle of the road type over the top action, right? Like for example, I think Metal Gear, what was it? Metal Gear Rising Revengeance. Yeah, they went off the deep end with the over the top, ridiculous, nonsensical action with that shit. This, and you know, I'm not saying Revengeance was trash, but it was over the top, right? Stellar Blade seems to be that type of action game where it's just enough action, and it's, yes, it's gonna be a little bit over the top, but not too much. It's gonna rein itself in, and the combat looks cool. The visual, you know, visually it looks like a great game. Not sure about the story. The stories in these type of games usually be some bullshit, if we being honest. But yeah, I look forward to this game. So Stellar Blade is number 7. Number 6 is Redfall. Now, originally, when Redfall was announced and when we first saw it, I was not excited for it at all, because what it seemed to be to me at first was just another Back for Blood, you know, another game, another co-op, not zombie, but vampire shooter. And I'm like, nope, that's gonna be another Back for Blood, not interested. But Arcane is working on this game, and they've made it clear it's not exactly that, if they're to be believed, and I have no reason not to believe them. They said this game is actually story driven. It's a single player game first. It just has the option for co-op, which changes everything for me, because there's a big difference between a game that's a co-op game that you could play by yourself and a game that's a single player game that also has co-op. There's a big difference there. I shouldn't have to explain it, but the way the games are designed and the way the game operates is very different between the two. So being that they said it's a story driven, you know, it's a game that you could really play by yourself and still have an amazing experience. They designed it that way. And the gameplay also looks good from what I've seen. Nothing that necessarily blows me away, but it looks solid, and I gotta see more. And Arcane is really good at what they do, and I'm pretty sure, you know, they're going to do things that are outside of the box as far as the powers and the abilities go, because they've obviously made, you know, things like Dishonored, which I love, and so that skill tree is going to be impressive. So hey, shout out to Xbox. They actually made it on my list for next year. Number 6 is Redfall. Number 5 is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now, I haven't been excited for an Assassin's Creed game in a very long time. Whatever the last Assassin's Creed game that played like a classic Assassin's Creed, that's the last time I've cared about Assassin's Creed. When they switched over to the game essentially being this RPG game where enemies are sponges, and you have this gigantic map with way too much shit to do that takes like 100+ hours to actually, you know, conquer and beat. I hate that shit. I like the classic Assassin's Creed games, and Assassin's Creed Mirage is said to be, like that 20, 30 hour, more linear Assassin's Creed game. And that's what I want. I want the modern day version of what Assassin's Creed 2 essentially was. And I think Ubisoft understands there's an audience for that. There's the people who obviously like the new direction that Assassin's Creed has went in, because hell, as much as I despise it and hate it, it sells very well. And I honestly kind of hate you people who like Assassin's Creed and support what Assassin's Creed is now, because I want them to go back to what it was permanently and mainly. But since they are servicing people who like the other side, they're trying to service all people, I can be cool with that, but I still hate you new people who support this new Assassin's Creed. But yes, I'm excited for this because I've been waiting for Assassin's Creed to return to its roots. So Assassin's Creed Mirage is number 5. Number 4 is SpiderMan II. Some people might be surprised that that's not in a higher spot. It's not in the top 3. But the reason why it's not in the top 3 is because we haven't seen gameplay, right? We haven't seen any gameplay unless I'm bugging. We just saw that one cinematic trailer. It was in engine, I think. It was in engine, but it wasn't actually gameplay at that PlayStation showcase, which at this point feels like 2 years ago. I think it was maybe last year. I think it's probably been 1 year since we saw it, but it feels like 2 years to me at this point, right? So if we actually saw gameplay, I would put it in a better place, but we haven't. And I'm a little bit concerned about how much they're actually going to do with this sequel. Of course, I don't doubt Insomniac Games, but are they really going to do that much more with the combat, with the fact that we're going to be playing with Peter and Miles versus what they did in the original Spider-Man, in 2018. Sometimes I forget that. Sometimes I confuse that Spider-Man came out 2017, but it's 2018, I think. So I'm just unsure, are they really going to make big changes, and is it going to be a big difference from 2018? I felt like they went in the right direction with Miles Morales and that combat, but this is Spider-Man 2. It's apparently going to be PS5 only if you want to believe Sony. So I think they need to do a lot more. This can't, I'm just worried about it being kind of just another Spider-Man game. Like, are we going to be able to travel to different boroughs? Maybe not all 5, but we need to go somewhere besides Manhattan, right? So there's just concerns I have there, and that's why it's not on a better place on my list. Because really what we're analyzing our hype for this game is really based on the first game and what we think or what we hope they're going to do. So that's why Spider-Man 2 is number 4. Number 3, and this is probably the only game on the list where I'm very unsure if it'll actually release in 2023. It's Judas, the game that was revealed at the Jeff Keighley's Game of the Year Awards. This is the long-awaited game by Ken Levine, who also made BioShock. This is essentially a BioShock spiritual successor. You could almost consider it BioShock 4, but I think they are actually working on a BioShock 4 game. So we're supposed to get BioShock 4, and we're gonna get this new game by Ken Levine called Judas. And the trailer that we saw, I think it was maybe like 2 minutes long, but it looked amazing. We saw bits and pieces of gameplay, but I love BioShock. So what we saw, the aesthetic, the art style, everything about how they make BioShock games, the underlying themes, the story that's usually connected to it, the gameplay, the visual. I love everything about BioShock. So yes, Judas had to be in my top 3, and I can only hope it releases in 2023. I believe Ken Levine made a statement early this year about the game, about they weren't gonna show the game until it was almost ready. So since he's showing this game now at the end of 2022, which was the Game Awards trailer, it's safe to say that it's soon to be ready and could drop in 2023. So yeah, Judas is number 3. Number 2 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I'm a big Star Wars fan. See all the movies, watch all the TV shows. I read the lore. Some of you may not know about this, but I go down deep rabbit holes with Star Wars and the lore and the stories and the characters. Yeah, I'm that guy. So a Star Wars game with, you know, picking up the story again with Cal Kestis, a little bit older. He's gonna have more powers from what we've seen in the trailer. He's maturing as a Jedi. There was news that they're adopting kind of like the Neo Ghost of Tsushima style gameplay, where he's gonna have like, I think 4 or 5 different stances, and the different stances are gonna be are going to be so he can adapt to certain situations. So you know, the first one was a Souls, was a very light Souls kind of game, but it wasn't all the way. Some people didn't expect that, but I liked it. And I think, you know, they're gonna take a lot of because the first one was a little bit underrated. It landed in the 70s, I think, and I think, you know, the game essentially is the first iterations of a lot of people's games. That was a prototype. Now they laid the foundation, and they're just gonna go, you know, balls to the wall with all the enhancements and improvements for this sequel. The story in the first one was really good. Gameplay was solid. It wasn't the best, but I'm sure they're gonna fine tune it, and it's gonna be a lot tighter. So, and obviously the visuals look great. They got a great cast of characters. So, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is number 2. Now, before I get to my number 1, I want to give an honorable mention to a few games, because as I said, when I was making this list, I had to add some games, remove some games, rearrange, and a lot of games in 2023 didn't make it on my list that I'm looking forward to. So honorable mention to these games, and some of you might be surprised: Flintlock Siege of Dawn, Wild Hearts, Suicide Squad, Atomic Heart, Factions 2. I put Factions 2. Factions 2 is not on my list mainly because I don't think it's releasing in 2023. So that's why I'm putting it as an honorable mention in case it releases in 2023. If it actually had a 2023 release date, it would probably be number 2 for me. It would probably be number 2. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I don't think that's releasing in 2023. If it was, it would definitely be on my list. Alan Wake 2 and Final Fantasy 16 as an honorable mention. Yeah, it's not making my list. I know some people probably would want an explanation for that, and it's really only because the gameplay looks good, but I'm just unsure about the characters, the story, the setting, just everything else probably outside of the combat is just like a few question marks for me. And I look forward to it, but I'm not like excited. Like, you know, I don't get that feeling of excitement when I look at that Final Fantasy 16 trailer and like, oh man, I can't wait. When it gets here, it gets here. It's a day one for me, but I'm not like jumping out of my seat to play it. You know, it just doesn't give me that feeling and emotion, but it's still a day one. And, you know, all the games I mentioned in my honorable mentions are most likely day ones as well. But time to get to my number 1. This should come as no surprise to anybody. If you know me, if you follow me, if you listen to me, this is not a shock, no surprise. There is no uncertainty from the time I was at number 10. If you know me, you knew what my number 1 was going to be. My number 1 is Resident Evil 4 Remake. Yes, a remake. And there are those who would say, oh man, it's a bad thing. You know, things are bad when a remake is your number 1. I completely fucking disagree. I don't abide by that. I do not subscribe to the, oh, we're in bad gaming times or things are bad when you look forward to remakes. I completely disagree with that bullshit. It just means that one of my favorite games of all time just happens to be coming out next year. That's all it means. Y'all know I bought Resident Evil 4 on pretty much every single platform there is. every platform that they've ported it to, and they've ported it to damn near everything, I've bought it there and I've beat it there. I don't buy collector's editions. I've bought the collector's edition for Resident Evil 4. Not only did I buy the collector's edition, I bought the game 3 times. I pre-ordered it 3 times. That's how much I love this game. This is an anomaly. You gotta understand that. This is an anomaly. This is not some everyday normal game for me. I absolutely love this game. I know this game inside and out. It's probably the game that I've beaten more than any other game. It's definitely top 3. It's absolutely top in my top 5 games of all time, maybe top 3. I would have to think about it. So I don't think the fact that it's number 1 for me really means anything negative. It just happens to align like that in 2023, you know, my one of my favorite games of all time is just being remade. But when you look at the rest of my list, these are essentially new games, new IPs, sequels to recently new things, aside from Dead Space Remake, obviously, which is number 10. So yeah, that's all it means. 2023 is stacked, as I said. I think the gaming industry